Hello and happy Saturday. This is week 11 of the fantasy football season. This is Play Calling with Keenan, brought to you by Incede.ai. Let's do it. Taking a look back at week 10, boy, do we have some great games. First, we got to start with the plays around the world. Kyler Murray to DeAndre Hopkins to propel the Cardinals to atop the NFC West. What a catch. Possibly the play of the year. We always have one crazy pass like this each season. This is looking like it. Huge fantasy swing at the end. We had the Bills drive down to take the lead with under a minute left, only for Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins to come back and take the lead. Crazy pass, also some crazy branding implications. Jordan brand was up top above Nike and Adidas. Crazy marketing opportunities for Jordan. That was the top thing I saw this week. Stemming from that, staying in the NFC West, the Rams did beat my Seahawks. Tough loss. The Seahawks did bounce back this Thursday night versus the Cardinals. So we do like to see that, a very tight NFC West race with the Hawks at 7 wins, Cardinals at 6, Rams at 6, and Niners still hanging out at 4. Toughest division of football. It's a tough out every week, no matter who you play for those teams. We saw a biggest surprise, perhaps for me, was the Ravens taking the loss to the Patriots. The Patriots looked really strong, had a good defensive game plan for Lamar, and they played good, and they kind of reasserted themselves back in the playoff race in the AFC East. Staying in the AFC East, the Dolphins also had a pretty good performance defeating the Chargers. The Dolphins continue to look like a playoff team and are very well coached by possible Coach of the Year candidate Brian Flores. And take a look at another game. We had a battle in the NFC least, and the Giants surprisingly beat the Eagles. The Giants find themselves very well positioned to contend for the division. We had the Washington football team, I should say, fell short versus the Lions in a very thrilling game. So that division remains pretty wide open. And outside of that, we had the Steelers remain undefeated, last undefeated team in football. The Steelers 9-0. I don't think they have much of a chance to go undefeated. They have another game versus the Ravens, another couple tough games in the AFC. But they've really put together on both sides, look like the most complete team in football, as Big Ben has returned really well, and that defense has just been menacing. A lot of great games in Week 11. Look forward to get into it. Taking a look at the injuries this week, COVID strikes yet again. We start with the Cleveland Browns. Myles Garrett was placed on the reserve COVID-19 list. He was placed on Thursday, which gives him no chance to be off the list before Sunday's game, so he's been ruled out. Big blow for the Browns defense. He gets the pass rusher, rushes the pass well, stops the run game. William Moore overall balanced defensive ends in the league and defensive players in the league. Huge blow for the Browns. Next, we go to the Carolina Panthers. Christian McCaffrey is out again with a shoulder injury. My condolences to those of you like myself who have had the number 1 pick and have had your best player out for most of the year. Mike Davis, plug and play. He's back. If you kept him on your roster, great for you. If you didn't, go hit the waiver wires right now. He's available in some leagues. He's shaping to be, once again, top 8 running back this week. It definitely solidified in the RB1 candidate. Teddy Bridgewater is most likely going to be out. If he cannot go, it will be possibly P.J. Walker, former XFL star, played under Matt Rule at Temple for a while. He's got a strong arm. Saw a little action relieving Teddy Bridgewater the last time, actually, ironically enough, versus the Falcons. And also it could be Will Grier, former Western Virginia Mountaineer. Will Grier, that is. He's also in line to possibly start. Has been splitting reps with P.J. Walker. If Teddy Bridgewater can't go, the Panthers are open. Bridgewater can go, but both these guys have had a little action in the NFL, so it won't be their first snaps out there. Staying in that same division, Drew Brees was placed in the IR with broken ribs and punctured lungs. That's just tough injury, unfortunate for Drew Brees. Excuse me. But they are in a good position with 2 good starters, and one would think that Jameis Winston, one of the highest-paid backups in the league, plug and play as the backup, but it appears they're going a different way. It appears the Saints are turning to Taysom Hill, 30-year-old backup jack-of-all-trades player, signed a pretty big contract this offseason. Looks like he's going to get to go. A possible reason, this is definitely kind of a conspiracy reason for this decision for the Saints, is the financial incentives in Jameis Winston's contract are $1.7 million he stands to gain if he starts and plays a significant portion of the year. So that may be a reason for the cap-strapped Saints to turn to Taysom Hill as opposed to Jameis Winston, because they stand to not pay Jameis Winston financial incentives if he does go in and perform. Not sure if that's totally the case, but that may be a reason. Who knows? But whatever the reason is, really weird move by the Saints. I think Jameis is a pretty good quarterback, gunslinger, throws a lot of picks, a lot of touchdowns, but Surprising move to me, to say the least. I will bet he will get a lot of action, probably just not as the starter, so he doesn't get that technical start for his contract. Heading away from the Saints into Cincinnati, Joe Mixon out again. It's been a rough year for Joe Mixon fantasy owners. Giovanni Bernard, the longtime veteran, is going to be once again a plug-and-play veteran of that backfield. I figure he factors into the top 15 of running backs this week, given just sheer volume opportunity. And looking at the WR1, Devontae Adams was taken off the injury list on Thursday. He's looking like a full go. He said he's not committed to playing 100%, but I would suspect that he'll go this week, which is a huge play because he's been hands down the best wide receiver in fantasy this year. That's about all it for the injury list. Not much in the Rams Buccaneers game on Monday night. And we didn't see many injuries in the Hawks and Cardinals game on Thursday. Getting into quarterbacks of the week, we start with my start of the week, Cam Newton. Cam Newton is in a really favorable matchup versus the Houston Texans. Texans are giving up the 14th most opposing points to fantasy quarterbacks. They have the 18th best pass defense, and they are dead last in stopping the run. What does that mean for Cam Newton? I think it means he'll be able to run and pass on the Texans. He'll have N'Keal Harry back. He'll have Jacoby Myers, who's really come on as a great slot receiver. He'll be without Julian Edelman still, but the Patriots are just one game back of 500. A lot to play for. The Texans are sitting at a pretty rough 2-7. I think Cam Newton will be used a lot as a dual threat. They'll ride their running backs. Play action pass will be open. And having N'Keal Harry back in the red zone will be huge. Looking at his stats so far this year, he's done a lot of the damage fantasy-wise. His legs came out scorching hot first 2 weeks, slowed down for one. COVID hit, played these versus Denver, god-awful versus the Niners. Had 2 solid games versus Buffalo and the Jets. Had a decent game versus Baltimore. They got up and kind of pounded the rock more. I think that Cam Newton's a pretty safe quarterback. A lot of people are not starting him. A lot of people have him on the bench. Some people don't even have him rostered. But he is definitely my start of the week, matchups-wise, and just looking at the track record. Looking at boomer bust, Watson likes him 26% both ways. And, middling 19.2 projection. I am smashing the over on the boom. I love Cam Newton this week. And before you guys accuse me of being a Patriots fan, my sit is Tom Brady. That's right, the GOAT, Tom Brady, Father Tom. Don't like him this week for a few reasons. First reason is the Rams have a damn good defense. They have the 5th best pass defense, the 3rd best run defense. They have a guy named Aaron Donald, and they have rising star Brandon Staley, a defensive coordinator in his first year. Just 37 years old. 6 years younger than Tom Brady, and I expect him to give Tom Brady fits. Look what the Rams did to my Seahawks last week. They stifled Russell Wilson. They rushed the passer. They dropped back. They did it all. They stopped the run. They have a great defense. I think it's time people start talking about how good of defense the Rams have. And Watson, I think, is kind of reading into this. They have 25% bust. I'm not saying necessarily he's going to bust, but I do believe he'll be below projections. And I know Tom Brady's an instant QB1 start in almost all league formats. I myself am not starting him this week, so I'm practicing what I preach. I don't love the matchup for Tom Brady. It is going to be a great game Monday night. I think it's going to be a defensive game. The Bucs have a good defense. They haven't necessarily showed it in the last few weeks, but I think it will be a defensive game. And further kind of backing this up, let's look at what Tom Brady's done against good defenses. The Saints, decently good defense. He had an all right game. And then Chicago, pretty middling game. Green Bay, and most recently against New Orleans again, not a great game. He's really torn apart bad defenses like Carolina and Denver, Chargers, the Raiders, the Giants, and he's done okay against better teams. Until we see something from Tom Brady where he does well against a good defense, I don't recommend necessarily starting him if you have other options at quarterback. Getting into running backs I love this week. First running back I love is going to be J.D. McKissic, coming out of nowhere this year to be quite the pass catcher, one of the best receiving running backs in the league this year for fantasy. Just looking at his stat line, look what he's done receiving. He's had 5 weeks of 5 catches or over. Hasn't had any receiving touchdowns, but he's starting to pick up his carries. Most recent this last week, most promising thing I saw was he did get some goal line action. He ended up punching in his first rushing touchdown of the year. He absolutely remains a must-start in full-point PPR. The Bengals have a 26th-ranked pass defense and are really vulnerable with pass catchers out of the backfield. I expect a high-scoring game this week. And it's pretty evident that Alex Smith loves dropping down to McKissick. I believe Alex Smith is good to go again this week. But he's absolutely must start, especially if he sees more goal line action. He has become one of the surprising fantasy players this year. A player that I absolutely don't like and is really high in the projection boards this week is Damian Harris, coming off a big game where he went up for over 100 yards on the Ravens. I was surprised to see that. He's got a lot of workload in the last few weeks. I've been taking a look at it, and he's had double-digit carries 5 times this year, 4 straight weeks. What's concerned to me there is he's only had 1 rushing touchdown. He gets a lot of his opportunities vultured by Rex Burkhead and others in the red zone, including Cam Newton, who's always threatened to run it in the red zone. He's absolutely no help in the receiving game, only has 2 catches on the year. That's going to James White and Burkhead. He's a kind of victim of a lot of people are having really high on their board, starting to flex, even RB2, which is crazy to me. And I just don't see it. I think he's also battling a chest and ankle injury, questionable in the injury reports. We know how Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels have rolled for the last few years. Suddenly you think you have your guy. Maybe it's Sony Michel. Maybe it's James White, whoever it is. The next week they're getting 5 carries. I've seen it too many times. I don't trust it. I am avoiding Damian Harris in all leagues this year. Or this week, I should say. Getting into my flex of the week, it is someone who is not garnering enough attention around the league. That is Marvin Jones. Marvin Jones caught a lot of touchdowns last year, started off slow, was banged up, and here we are. We're back in Marvin Jones touchdown land. 4 touchdowns the last 3 weeks. Last 4 weeks, he scored 13 or more in full-point PPR. I love him. You know who hates him? Watson. Watson loves him to bust this week. Part of that is due to Matthew Stafford possibly being out, and it also relies on what Galladay's going to do. We're not sure about Galladay, missed the last few weeks, but if Stafford plays, Marvin Jones is become his target, just like he was last year, his absolute red zone target. He's caught 5 receiving touchdowns this year. He's done well. The Panthers have struggled to defend in the red zone against the pass. They've been surprisingly sturdy against the run, but they consistently get picked apart in the red zone. I'm going against Watson here. I know 29-19 ratio, not what you like to see, but I'm taking the 19%, exceeding 20 points this week. I really like Marvin Jones. Big bust candidate, big boom candidate this week versus the Panthers. Getting into the wild card of the week. It's a different one this week because I personally never seen this in all my years of playing fantasy. We have Taysom Hill, who is eligible to play both tight end and quarterback in ESPN this week. We see here tight end and quarterback injury designation or position designation. And it's just a weird one. It's just a weird one. We all thought that Jameis Winston was going to start high-paid backup. But like I was saying earlier, incentive-laden contract, that may be the reason the Saints are not wanting to play him. A lot of financial implications. He stands to make $1.7 million in guaranteed money if they do decide to go ahead and play him and he starts a certain amount of games. Instead, they're going with Taysom Hill, a 30-year-old backup tight end quarterback, jack of all trades. I mean, Watson is all over him this week. 29% chance to exceed 23.9 and 18% chance to bust below 11. Really, this is factoring in a bunch of things, I think. They're looking at 1 is Taysom Hill as a passer, 2 he's a runner, and 3 he can catch the ball. We have no idea if he'll play 10 snaps at quarterback, 2 snaps at quarterback, or every dang snap at quarterback. But he's going to play some quarterback tonight is all we know. He's playing the Falcons, don't have a great defense. I think this game is going to be a lot like when Lamar Jackson, kind of the effect of Lamar Jackson coming in for the Ravens, really novel offense and novel player. No one plays like Taysom Hill. And I'm not saying he's going to necessarily do good or bad. I just think he's the wild card of the week because he could score a lot of points in a lot of different ways. And I am going to be watching this game. I wish they would have flexed it Sunday night. It's intriguing. I would have watched Jameis. Now we get to watch Taysom Hill. Really intriguing game. Looking at his stats and see what he's done. It's just it's a weird stat log here. He's had a 5-point game, a 10-point game, a 14-point game, a negative game. He's played games all over the place. He scored a receiving touchdown. He scored a rushing touchdown. He's thrown a couple touchdowns. Doesn't even show his passing stats on here. Just, I mean, the total epitome of wild card of the week. I'm excited to watch Taysom Hill play. He's my wild card of the week. That is a wrap for Week 11 Play Call with Keenan, brought to you by Incede.ai. Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your time with family. Stay safe and go Hawks.